How's it hanging, everybody? Welcome to my American Horror Story 1984 after show. We are discussing episode 1, and get comfortable because I will be here every single week reviewing each and every episode for you guys. I'd like to kick things off with a shot of Captain Morgan, so let's get started. Hey audience, I hope you look as good when I'm sober. Just kidding, this is my first shot. And this is a big shot glass, oh no. Cheers to a brand new season of American Horror Story. Down the hatch. Alright, let's get into it. Let's discuss the opening sequence. So we kick things off with a classic horror movie scenario. Horny teens at a summer camp. You got 2 girls and 1 pretty boy about to embark on a threesome in their bed. But one girl hears a noise and the other 2 don't think much of it. And when that other girl takes her shirt off, as soon as it's over her eyes, the other 2 were killed by the killer. Not long after, the other girl was killed herself as well. And that is how we start the show off. I really hope that the show has this vibe because it's really 80s classic movie horror vibes, and I live for it. I totally live for it. I am down for this. If this is how the season is going to be, I am 100% on this ride. Honestly, I've been wanting a season like this since I've been watching American Horror Story, and I feel like Ryan Murphy has the potential to rock it because he's really good at like camp, not like camp, but like camp, you know what I mean? This should be his MO, so he better kill it. Now that opening sequence took place in the 70s, and now we're in the present day being 1984 of course, where we meet a group of kids in an aerobics class. How 80s of you. Now one of the guys, Xavier, played by Cody Fern, welcome back Cody Fern, gets wind of a summer camp job as a camp counselor, and he tells his friends, and they're all keen on the idea except for the one virginal girl, shockingly played by Emma Roberts. Good role. Quite a change for the usual American Horror Story bitch girl. But yeah, she was not too keen on the idea until she gets robbed in her house by a man known as the Night Stalker, and she decides to go with the rest of them because she was scared for her life. So the next day, the group of friends get into a big van and get stoned and drunk in the back and embark on their journey to Camp Redwood. And in true classic horror movie cliche fashion, they stop at a sketchy-ass gas station where a sketchy-ass gas station worker warns them to turn away and go back and get away from Camp Redwood because they will surely die there. And also, in classic horror movie cliche fashion, they just say meh and continue their journey. And on that journey, they end up accidentally hitting a man that was in the middle of the road who was clearly in bad shape already to begin with. No one really knows for sure what he got into before he got hit by the van, but the group of friends take him in the van and take him to Camp Redwood to get help by the nurse that works there. While the nurse caters to the guy's wounds, the camp owner, played by Leslie Grossman, gives them the grand tour of the camp. And later on that night, the nurse herself tells them of a story about what happened to the camp back in the 70s, the Camp Massacre, where 10 people supposedly died, but it turned out it was actually just 9 because the owner was actually one of the victims that survived. Dang. Side note, apart from the owner and the nurse and of course the group of counselors that are friends, the only other people that work there are a gross looking chef and the boss of the counselors, who is, you know, this sort of legendary aerobics guy. We'll get into him a little bit later. So it's obviously a very small group of people working at the camp for obvious reasons of what happened in the camp's history. Basically, Leslie's character, aka Margaret, wanted to reopen the camp and make good memories there to get rid of the bad ones that she experienced there. Definitely honorable, however, given that this is a throwback to horror movie cliches, this is a disaster waiting to happen. Now, unfortunately for Margaret, that same night, coincidentally, Mr. Jingles, the original killer of the massacre that happened back in the 70s, just escaped the insane asylum after getting wind of the fact that they are opening the camp again. So this should be fun. So yeah, Mr. Jingles escapes the asylum and makes his way to the gas station where he kills the gas station worker and steals his truck to make his way to the camp where he gets his second kill in that weird hitchhiker dude. Now I'm not gonna lie, at this point I was pretty confused because this hitchhiker dude that was hit by their van was in rough shape already in the daytime. And according to the show, Mr. Jingles escaped at night on the same night. So either this is like a classic horror movie from the 80s plot hole that we are so used to overlooking, or this is someone else working with Mr. Jingles or trying to be like Mr. Jingles, which I guess could potentially be the Night Stalker, which is the guy that went after Emma Roberts' character. We also learned during this episode that Xavier has a bit of a connection with the Night Stalker as well, because when he was checking his voicemails, he had a voicemail from the Night Stalker saying that he will find him. So, you know, we could have two murderers on our hand and one trying to one up the other, I guess. I don't know. It's confusing. This is only episode 1 though, so I will be patient in letting the story unfold because that's just what American Horror Story does. They tell the story a little bit backwards so that we're confused the whole time until the end. And even then, sometimes we're confused. Now, Brooke, aka the virginal one, aka Emma Roberts, still weird to me, is the first one to find the hitchhiker, and then she sees the killer in the window, and in true horror movie cliche fashion, gets chased by the killer all the way down the hill, and of course she trips and falls like several hundred times, and eventually she makes her way to the camp where she warns everyone that the killer is out there, but when they go back to investigate, the hitchhiker's body is gone and they think that she is crazy, of course. Later on that night, the payphone outside was ringing, and of course Brooke goes to answer that phone, and when she goes there, she turns around and sees the Night Stalker, and whoosh, that episode ends in a cliffhanger. Honestly, not a bad start to the season. I'm actually really looking forward to the season. I love the 80s, so like I'm so down to watch the season. But anyway, let's talk about the characters now. First of all, let's talk about the villains. You got the Night Stalker and Mr. Jingles. Personally, I would have preferred if we just had one villain. I mean, I don't see that there's quite the connection between the Night Stalker and Mr. Jingles yet. There could be. I feel like maybe he wants to one-up Mr. Jingles and sort of recreate that magic that he once had. That's my prediction anyway. But, I mean, it would have been better with one in my opinion. Mr. Jingles definitely has that more classic horror movie feel to him, whereas the Night Stalker is kind of like, I don't know, he's just like this gothic dude with an axe to grind, which is not as entertaining in my opinion. Which villain do you guys like better? Let me know in the comments below. Then of course we have the protagonist, that is Brooke, played by Emma Roberts. Again, I'm shocked that she is playing the good girl for once. She's always the bitch in the show. In light of the fact that they're basing this series on the classic horror movie sort of scenarios, I'd like to place a bet with the viewers that she will be the last one standing. She might still die, but she'll be the last one standing, and if I lose this bet by the end of the season, I will take a shot of tequila, which I can't stand. I hate tequila, but if I lose the bet, I will take that shot at the end of this series, okay? And if I win the bet, then I win the bet. And if you guys were betting against me, then you have to take a drink and tag me on my Instagram, okay? Deal? Deal. Another character we have is Montana, played by Billie Lourd, and oh my god, she is killing this role, you guys. I'm impressed. She is playing the role of like this classic 80s kind of rocker chick, and like honestly, she's the most believable out of every actor on the show so far. Like, when I see her playing the role, I'm convinced that I'm watching an 80s film. It's so good. She's so good. She's definitely that classic horror movie cliche horny girl that is just all about the sex. I mean, she goes after her boss man, who is also into aerobics just like she is. And I mean, I don't blame her. He's kind of daddy AF, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, boss man's name is Trevor, and there's not much to his character yet other than he's obviously a very horny daddy type as well. And he's, you know, going after Montana a little bit. But he made a bet with himself to hook up with Margaret, so we'll see if that happens by the end. Then there's Xavier, played by Cody Fern, and he's very George Michael looking, but he's, you know, an inspiring actor to be, who's a very method actor, as he said at the beginning of the show. I'm gonna say that he's probably the other leading character on the show, given his history with the Night Stalker, but it's a mystery at this point, so I guess we'll learn as time goes on how important he'll be to the actual story. Then there's Ray. He's the black guy in the horror films that, you know, they put in back in the day to make the movie seem more diverse. He does seem like the only other good guy in the group of friends, so I feel like maybe he and the virginal one will fall in love, and then he'll probably meet a tragic demise, but not too early on. Because that's how horror movies go. The black guy can never die first. Relax guys, I'm not getting all political on you. I'm just saying that that's just how classic horror movies go, you know? Then there's Chet, who is played by Gus Kensworthy, who is the typical hot guy with an anger problem in the show. He is totally classic 80s horror movie vibes in the sense that he is a pretty boy that can't act. But to be honest, I feel like he is purposely playing the character that way just to give us more of that 80s vibe, you know? I give you credit for that. Then there's Margaret, played by Leslie Grossman. I feel like every role that Leslie Grossman has played, whether it's been on this series or just any series she's ever done, she always plays camp characters, so this is her MO. She'll be fine in it. I mean, she could potentially be the one that ends up killing Mr. Jingles, which would ruin my bet, but it's definitely a possibility given that she was one of his original victims that actually survived, or once Mr. Jingles gets wind of the fact that she is one of his former victims, he'll kill her instantly. Guess time will tell. Then there's Nurse Rita, played by Angelica Ross, and she's got this chilled, laid back, sort of tell it like it is vibe. I like her character, but I feel like she won't survive very long. Then there's Chef Birdie. She's absolutely disgusting, but I feel like she could probably kick the Night Stalker's ass and maybe even give Mr. Jingles a run for his money. I don't think she'll be a major character, but she'll be entertaining at least. There was one other character, and I didn't quite grab her name, but she was kind of the one that seemed to be leading the asylum part of the story where Mr. Jingles escaped. She seemed to definitely know that he was probably going to head towards that camp. I don't know how big of a role she'll play in the series, but she'll be around again for sure. So yeah, that about covers the characters. The episode itself, I really enjoyed it, not gonna lie. I really love the 80s throwback that the show is doing this year. And this show feels like a sequel to a movie that we haven't really seen, but let's face it, this is definitely loosely inspired by the Sleepaway Camp movies. I don't know if you've seen them. Google them, just Google them. Definitely inspired by that movie in many ways, but there's also hints of many of the other classic horror films that we all know and love. So I like that. I'm looking forward to seeing what else the show has to bring. What did you guys think of the first episode? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, give it a big old thumbs up, subscribe if you want to, and I will catch you guys next week.